Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? It is Geoff Mosher, Adam Caplan, and I look at Adam on YouTube and I'm like, he's home from Indianapolis. It is a long, long week out there. I salute you, sir, for withstanding all those long nights and longer days, or longer days, long days and longer nights. And look, you come back and we got a lot to talk about here as we are. For most people who will listen to this on a Monday, right, we are exactly 1 week from the opening of the legal tampering period, as it's called, in free agency. So there's a lot to discuss here, Adam, with the Eagles, because we've spent a lot of time, and we'll continue to do that, talking about sort of who we expect the Eagles to lose from their Super Bowl championship team. But as the week goes on, we're also going to get into who they might replace that with, where they might be bargain shopping in free agency. But first, we want to really take a look at the offense and defense as it is and what the Eagles need with free agency 1 week away. And we'll talk about, we'll call it this way, their expected needs, right? Because we are expecting some departures in some areas, and that just happens when you're the Super Bowl champs. But Adam, how's it feel to be back from Indianapolis? How was your week?
It was good. You know, the weather was bizarre because I know when I got back Saturday, it was the strangest thing. It was like low 60s when I was walking to my car, and then 2 hours later, it was in the 30s and windy as hell on Saturday. And we got the same wind in Indianapolis, so that it was overall it was a good week. Yeah, it's just as we set this up, because we're going to go into potential situations here, depending on how contract negotiations go with the Eagles and their free agents. But the one thing that of many takeaways that I had from the week was just really not a good free agency group overall around the National Football League. It's as I go through my file, and I had numerous conversations with NFL folks, it's extremely top heavy. Then it's a bunch of mid-level free agents. Now, it doesn't mean like Zach Bond was thought to be a lower level free agent, and look how that happened. Look what happened there. You never know, right? You never know. Mm-hmm. But on the surface, it doesn't look to be like a bountiful free agency for NFL clubs.
No, it's not. And that's why I guess what you've already seen two major moves. One, and both impact the Eagles' rivals in the NFC East. One was Matthew Stafford's decision and the Rams' decision to make it work. So he's going to be back there. So he will not be a Giant, which would have been fairly interesting behind that offensive line. Or a Raider, right. So, but more so for, although good point, because the Eagles do play the Raiders this year, I think.
Do they? I have no idea.
Don't they play the AFC West?
I have not even looked at the schedule.
Yeah, I forget. But either way, so Matthew Stafford stays, right? And the Rams are deciding not to be on a new quarterback. And then a huge move, right, Adam, where the Washington Commanders, I think it's huge because they gave up only a 5th-round pick. And
that's nothing. Can you believe that?
Yeah, that's nothing.
Debo?
I know Eagles fans are having fun with it because Debo Samuels looks like a declining player, but that is really a good trade for Washington. It really is. I mean,
I'll only give him a 5th-round pick. They'll owe him $17.5 million. He's on the final year deal, but they'll pick up his option bonus, which is almost all the money.
Yep.
But here's what happened. As soon as Ricky Pearsall was drafted last year, that either for 2025, either Ayuk or Samuel was not going to be here because they want to be at their base a heavy 12 personnel team, which means 2 tight ends, 2 receivers, 1 back. That's what Kyle Shanahan wants. So someone had to go, and although I'll tell you what, it was that Brandon Ayuk negotiation was bizarre. They had a trade worked out more or less with Cleveland, and they backed out at the last second. Washington, by the way, was in on it. The Ayuk sweepstakes before the draft, then they backed out because they thought, like a lot of teams thought, the Niners wanted too much. But now Samuel only won for a 5th-round pick. There's 3 reasons. A, injury history. He's 29. He may be a declining player. That's up to debate. But Brock Purdy didn't have a great year. He just didn't. Now there are 2 things here. Debo Samuel is not a non-route runner. He's not a deep threat. He's a run after the catch pass target. He's a very specific, scheme-specific wide receiver / weapon because he's really good in the backfield. And Cliff Kingsbury is very innovative, very creative. Like I would trust Cliff Kingsbury, Commander fans, if you're listening. We know we have some Commander fans listening, or Commando fans. My bad. I know you're going to crack me on that. So overall, look, he didn't get much. It's not a blockbuster trade. A blockbuster trade is when it's a significant player who's in his prime of his career. It's not even close to blockbuster. It's I know Niner fans are pissed off. They got next to nothing for it, a third-day pick. But again, we just outlined it. He's a very specific player. He's not going to be for everybody. That everything we just outlined narrows your value that you can get out of the player, and he's on the final year of his deal. And like, it's one thing if he was still great. Now we'll see what Cliff Kingsbury does. Now Washington, as we close this off, they're a team that, other than Terry McLaurin, their pass rush group was bad. It's one of those where you're like, how are they so good this past season? Well, quarterback was elite. He makes everybody around you better. There's a saying in coaching, by the way, great quarterback play could cover up a lot of warts, and they had plenty of warts on offense. Just the offensive line, not very talented, good coaching. Quarterback was elite. Running backs were okay, but now they got a piece here in Debo. We'll see what he's got left.
Yeah, and one thing I would also add from the San Francisco side of it, to your excellent point that Debo is not a vertical threat. He's a run after catch. He's an in between the numbers guy. I think the Niners are also not only do they have the benefit of Ricky Pearsall, who showed you something last year when he finally got healthy and had some productive games, but Juwan Johnson has really emerged for them as a guy who can move the sticks on third down, works inside the number. Juwan Jennings, thank you, Juwan Jennings. Who's Juwan? Oh, that's the guy
right.
from Penn State and Oregon, right?
Right.
But yeah, no, Juwan Jennings, I think, is also gives them a sense of confidence where they can make up that yardage and have a nice tall physical receiver who can make move the change between the numbers too. And that's not something I think they would have expected 2 years ago. So be very, very interesting. I think it's probably one of those trades that'll turn out to be a win-win for both, but we'll see how it goes.
Well, the Niners move cash and cap, but man, you got McCaffrey, who turns 29, who barely played last season, who was beat up. You got Trent Williams. I know he's going to be a Hall of Famer. He's one of the best left tackles in NFL history. He turns 37 in August. He's had a number of injuries in his career. Mm-hmm. Juwan Jennings, I love. He had some blow-up games where he just was phenomenal. And they signed him last year to an extension. So they get him on a cheap deal. Now, Pearsall will be a full-time player, but they're really light at that receiver position. So if we see the best of the Niners, are they a team that's kind of in transition here?
I will not count them out. I will not count them out. They got work to do.
But they need a lot. They need a lot. Ayuk, well, think about it, right? Ayuk coming back from ACL reconstruction. You have no idea how well he's going to play this coming season. We'll see about that. Jennings, you and I see it the same way. He's good. Kittle's getting up there. He is, and they're going to probably have to redo his contract. Kittle, wow, he turns 32 in October. Where's the time gone?
Yep.
And McCaffrey. So they've got guys who are talented, but or who are older. Defensively, they got some questions with their pass rush. Hargrave, they redid his deal. He's going to become a free agent. Mm-hmm. They got problems at corner there. I don't know who they are, to be honest with you. They got a lot of questions, those Niners.
100%. That is true. And they actually have not drafted that well. The last two drafts in particular, I think they may get – I think the Brock Purdy draft sort of is like the Eagles 2020 draft, where if you look at it, it's basically he saves it. And then the draft either before that or after that wasn't very good either. So they like I said, they got work to do. I just don't count them out because they've been a pretty successful team. Took a little bit of a hit. Some of those things were unfortunate. Trent Williams had a family issue that was really difficult for them. I think that they'll have enough talent to compete, but I agree with you. The rest of that division, starting with the Rams who won the division, the Cardinals were catching up. The Seahawks are going to catch up a little bit. So NFC West is going to be pretty interesting in 2020. A
lot of questions. Yeah, that division's got a lot of questions. Who is Seattle's a football team?
Absolutely.
I mean, you go through it. The Rams with Stafford coming back, which was kind of like the buzz of the combine. He was going to go back one way or the other. I know that his agent, Jimmy Sexton, negotiated with other teams in terms of money. But there's just saying at quarterback, when you don't have one, you're looking for one. This is not a year to be looking for a quarterback, man. It is brutal for the drafted free agents.
Very, very rough. All right. Speaking of the Eagles, we hit it on the head, Adam, when you were going out to the combine right before we did a podcast, and we said, listen, when you're looking for position coaches this deep into the offseason, sometimes you just have to go to the college ranks. We talked about their interview with Nunzio Campanelli from Syracuse, the quarterback's coach, and then while you were out there, they wound up hiring the Bowling Green head coach. A name that I've known for a long time, Scott. Is it Loeffler or Leffler, though? I think
it's Loeffler with one T. But here's the craziness of it. I met his former defense coordinator the night before, and the guy never mentioned it. Like, what were the chances I'm going to meet the D coordinator of Bowling Green? He still is. I guess the guy was invited by some coaches to visit because it's probably not too far of a drive. But so Scott Loeffler, this is a really good nugget I got. It's funny how coaching paths could change. So he was a runner-up to the Browns quarterback job that went to Kevin O'Connell in 2015.
Wow.
So think about it. If Loeffler becomes the quarterback's coach there in 2015 with the Browns, and Johnny Manziel was there, and it was not a very good football team. But bottom line is, you never know we may not have known about Kevin O'Connell. Who knows who we would have coached, because you'd never know what would happen.
Right.
It's just interesting that what happens there. So Scott Loeffler was Bowling Green's head coach, who, by the way, was Tom Brady's backup once at Michigan.
Yep.
He's 50 years old. Coached mostly at the college level. Unfortunately, he was with the Lions when they were 0-16. He probably wanted to. The 2015 situation probably wanted to wipe off that and get back to the NFL. But he comes back, a long absence. What we were told also by coaching sources is he badly wanted to get back in the NFL. He did here, and can you find a better situation than this? The defending Super Bowl champion.
Yeah, no, I mean it's really interesting. I know Scott just from because Bowling Green played Penn State this year also, and I don't know if most people remember or follow, but they were winning that game at halftime, and their quarterback was picking a very, very good Penn State defense apart. I believe the Penn State allowed 24 points in the first half of that game. It was a lot, and now eventually the cream's going to rise to the top. The defense made some adjustments, things settled down, and Penn State won that game. But I was really impressed with their quarterback play. He is a guy who knew exactly where he wanted to go with the ball and what he was doing. So good job. I believe Bowling Green has had a winning record in each of the last 2 years. So Scott has shown, and this is not a program that's historically that great to begin with, even for a small school. So good job by him. Good identification job by the Eagles. You never know how things are going to work out. The big question is, as he goes back to the NFL, how will he establish a relationship with Jalen Hurts? And that just remains to be seen. But I do think, unlike Nunzio Campanelli, who was a high school / college coach only, at least Scott Loeffler is someone who's been in the NFL, like you said, played in the NFL, has that NFL chops, has played
in the NFL.
I'm sorry, he did also coach in the NFL. He's played the position. So relatability there with Jalen Hurts should be pretty good there.
And by the way, one thing I'll add is that, believe this or not, he's probably getting a pay increase. He was making $525,000 at Bowling Green. I could tell you that tenured quarterback coaches at the National Football League make at least $1 million. Sometimes they make more than that if they're really good. So I have to believe he's making more than $525,000 to get him out of there. So
sure.
Yeah. That's a really good point you make about he's got to learn. Him and Hurts have to get on the same page. He's just got to learn through tape. I don't know how much tape he's watched, what Jalen likes, what he likes, doesn't like, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's the quicker they get up to speed together. This is a big deal, man. This is a really interesting hire. We'll see how it works out. On the surface, it seems brilliant, as you outlined 2 weeks ago. They're probably going to have to look at the college route to get somebody this late in the game, and they sure did. And that's interesting. And then Greg Austin, a familiar face, comes back as the assistant line coach, who Chip Kelly brought in. Boy, Chip is, for all the knocks he got, and a lot of it was deserved, man. He brought in some really good coaches in 2013. Greg Austin is a guy that left the NFL. He was coaching in college. He was an O-line coach, the main O-line coach for a couple schools, and then he went to the Jaguars, and now he's back in the NFL.
I will say this for Chip, despite his reputation in Philadelphia, well deserved, by the way, for what he was doing as sort of the GM head coach. I never ran into too many coaches who either coached with him or against him or knew him that had bad things to say about him. I feel like he's generally well regarded in the coaching community. Now, you ask maybe some personnel people or higher ups like Howie and Jeffrey, maybe you get a different answer because they have a different experience with what Chip was being asked to do. But Chip got jobs pretty quickly, no matter where it was. And then he went to work at Ohio State. He got the UCLA job. Ryan Day was hired him because he brought Ryan Day to Philly when he was the head coach here. So Urban Meyer has always spoke highly of Chip. I mean, Bill Belichick, remember? Bill Belichick brought Chip Kelly to New England in 2000, I want to say 05 or something. He basically brought Chip there to help them understand how to run the no-huddle offense, which the Patriots offense became a no-huddle driven offense for a while there with Tom Brady. So among coaches, Chip seems to know what he's doing with like you said, you bring Jeff Stoutland here. That's a huge part of this whole operation.
I think he hired Dave Phipp too, if I'm not mistaken.
He did hire Dave Phipp. Yep.
But what a job he did. 2013 in terms of assembling the staff. That is a great job by him.
Mm-hmm.
But so look, they've now have all the jobs filled, and it's considering how late it is. Remember, they hired Sean Desai 2 years ago when we were at the Combine. In fact, he was on my flight. He was on my flight coming from Philly to Indy to interview for the job. So yeah, you could hire coaches late. Those, that unfortunately didn't work out for Sean here, but Leffler, this is a hell of a hire on the surface. This is I do wonder who knew. I wonder if they had a connect. If any of these coaches had a connection to him. Maybe Nick did. I don't know.
That's a good call. I wouldn't know that. We'll find out.
Yep.
So now that the QB's coach and the assistant offensive line coach are filled, I think the Eagles are pretty much set. They may make a move here and there, but I don't think that there's a glaring opening at this point.
Yeah, because defensively, if I'm not mistaken, they did not lose anybody. What we were told is that Kellen Moore had interest in Jeremiah Washburn to be his O-line coach, but Washburn did not want to leave for a couple reasons, as we understand it. But he's staying for sure. He did lose TJ Paganetti, who was the run game specialist assistant line coach. So give Kellen Moore credit. Like he saw someone, TJ, who another guy Chip brought in, by the way. Him and his brother Ryan Paganetti, who's the analytics director for the Jaguars. So that's that. I'm looking. I don't think the Eagles lost anyone on defense. We know they lost Nussmeier. We know they lost Moore,
right?
And TJ Paganetti. But that's, I believe, it. Correct?
Yeah, that is it. So coaching staff looks good. You may see a quality control person either brought in or promoted, but that's not.
Yeah, that does happen sometimes. Like if because I know sometimes GMs he'll go, hey, along with the head coach, they tell the guy who's leaving to be head coach, hey, listen, these guys are off limits, but let us know who you want, and we'll let you know if we'll block them or not. Like that stuff matters. Like you can't. Like this team just won a Super Bowl. They're not looking to hurt themselves. You want to be fair to Kellen Moore because I know they like him a lot. They wanted to keep him, but you don't want to hurt your football team.
Right. All right. There was a transaction that happened. It was my fault. I glossed over it last time we did a pod, but I wanted to get to it now because it's interesting. The Eagles brought back Lou Nichols, the running back, Boise State. He's been on the practice squad. He's competed for a spot on the team for I think 2 straight years now. And when they signed him, Adam, they didn't sign him to a futures contract. They signed him to the 53. And I thought that was a little interesting. What was your take on that?
Yeah, because honestly, the 90-man roster now, the fact they signed him to 53 would be an indication that there had to be other teams involved. Because why would you do that? Just use them as the 90-man roster. It's not like they're playing games now.
Right.
So they used an open roster spot on the 53-man roster. They're 53 till March 12th at 4 p.m. Eastern, then becomes 90 off-season roster, your 90-man roster. So yeah, right now they have Barkley, Shipley, Lou Nichols, and Ty Davis-Price are the 4 running backs. You could go into your offseason. Some teams like to carry 5 in training camp because of the heat and preseason games, knowing that Barkley highly unlikely to play. Mm-hmm. Now we'll see what happens. Well, Shipley, this is a big offseason for him. Scott Eagles are very high on. But he doesn't have the physicality of Kenny Gainwell. He just doesn't. And he's not the pass blocker. Nobody is on the roster. We'll talk about in a couple minutes. But I thought that was interesting. Well, they clearly like Lou Nichols. That's very apparent.
I remember last year coming back from the Combine, and we were reporting that, one of the things the team liked about Lou Nichols was, he's a big, strong guy, but he also has a little juice to him. They like his wiggle. I think he can run a little bit. and make some plays there. But oddly enough, I mean, of course they bring in Saquon Barkley, but it was basically Barkley, Shipley, and Gainwell. I don't think they kept a fourth running back, but even when they put their practice squad together, I think Lou Nichols started off on it, but then he was eventually released from the practice squad and didn't come back because they had Ty Davis Price, and I think they had one other name whose name escapes me right now. They did a lot of roster tango with the practice squad, but it was interesting that Lou was kind of out there. I guess they just needed other spots for other players. Remember, they were thin at tight end, so they had a bunch of tight ends on the practice squad. They had a bunch of linebackers because of the injuries there. So maybe it was just a case where they wanted Lou, but couldn't because they needed those practice squad spots for other positions, and now they had the opportunity to bring him back, and they do it to the 53. So he's on the team. He'll compete, and we'll see. Certainly, it's a little bit of a, as we'll get into in a second, the running back room behind Saquon Barkley looks like it'll look a little bit different this year.
Yeah, depending on what they do with Gainwell. But yeah, it's boy, Ty Davis Price is a guy, and yet another Niner to the Eagles sign. Boy, they were very high on him, and he's a really good zone runner.
Uh-huh.
Eagles play gap and zone with their blocking scheme, but the bottom line is Ty Davis Price has a lot of talent. I'll be interested to see if he could push for a roster spot.
Wasn't he a third-round pick?
Yep. Again, another.
Those were the drafts I was talking about. The Niners, all the guys that they missed on, they're all with the Eagles. Like Danny Gray, I think was a fourth or a fifth. He's with the Eagles, right? Castro Fields, a 6th-round pick. He's now with the Eagles. Ty Davis Price, and then
Trey Sermon who was a 3rd rounder. Remember?
Yeah, Trey Sermon was a 3rd rounder.
What is going on? Who do they have who used to work? Is there anyone in their front office who used to work for the Niners? I don't know.
I don't think so.
Very funny.
Yeah,
very
really
strange.
Funny. All right, make sure you're checking out. It's up on the platforms. Andrew DeCecco did a great job all week long with the DeCecco Daily. He's been pumping them out basically every single day, and he had his own mock draft, Eagles mock draft. People love Andrew's Eagles 7-round mock draft. It's always well thought out. It's always consistent with how the team and organization thinks, not how Andrew, not his favorite guy. So it's really good. Make sure you check that out. Listen to it on the pod, the DeCecco Daily. Of course, we reposted and reran Adam's 3-part segment NFL first round mock draft into one. So if you just want to listen to the whole thing in one shot, it is up on the podcast platforms and also YouTube to take a listen to it. So we're excited about that. All right. So like I said, this episode, Adam, we're going to go through offense, what the Eagles need as free agency is about to start in a week, basically offensively. And let's start with running back because you have it in the notes and can't agree with you more. I'm very fascinated to see what happens with the Kenny Gainwell situation, because if he doesn't come back, I think some people think that, or the assumption is that Will Shipley would just step into that second QB or RB2 role. But the thing about Will is he's not the biggest guy in the world, and pass pro is something you're going to have to learn. And that's something Kenny Gainwell is good at. And you feel like they'll need a number 2 or a number 3 at least who can give you that pass pro and blocking.
Yeah, and I could tell you the word I got from a running backs coach who I ran into at the combine. It's not very good for guys who could pass protect in free agency. The guy mentioned 3 or 4 guys that he kind of liked, but he goes, he goes, look, man, I see it one way. Other coaches may see it differently. So that's a problem. Yeah, because Gainwell's really good at it. He's by far the best pass protector. Mm-hmm. Barkley has gotten a little bit better at IDing, pre-snap IDing, but he's just very average at it. It's sometimes not good enough. But he got a little better at it this past season, as we understand it, but he's got a ways to go. And Kenny G has just been a good development. He had a good offseason last year, nice season, but Shipley is way more explosive. That's the difference between the two, because that's the thing about having if Barkley couldn't play for some reason, because last year he didn't miss a game due to injury, which is pretty amazing. But if they brought back Gainwell, you could have a pretty good 2-man backfield between Gainwell's ability to grind carries and Shipley, the explosive juice guy. Between the two of them, and obviously Gainwell on third down. That's a pretty good tandem, I think, if they had to do it. But you take Gainwell out there, and look, he's a guy that we said when they drafted him, this is a guy that Sirianni really liked. And over a series of years, we called him teacher's pet. I mean, this is a guy that he loves this guy. I guess their staff really likes him. So it's been a good story. Was he 5th? Was he 6th or 5th? Fifth?
I think a fifth.
Yeah, good story.
Yeah.
Good player.
5th round pick, and that's with missing his last year, right? He sat out the COVID year, I believe.
20, yeah. And see, the funny thing is, before we move on, is he's nothing close to what anyone in the NFL thought he was going to be. He was this maybe potential, not a slot receiver, but big time, catch the ball out of the backfield back. He's done a little of it. Seemed like he had more juice in college. Doesn't really have that. He's been a grinding, sustaining back. We had his coach, Ryan Silverfield, on. Ryan thought that he'd be used differently here. He wasn't criticizing anyone. He just didn't see quite the way that the Eagles have used him. And by the way, it's worked out. Right. But I just want to see a little bit more juice from him. But he did look a little bit more explosive in training camp. And also, by the way, in the regular season, he had some really nice runs.
Mm-hmm.
But Shipley's more explosive. That's not a secret to anybody who's watching.
Right.
We'll see what happens. This is a problem. If Gainwell does not resign, they got to get somebody who could block. You need to have somebody to help you on third downs. That's why he was in a lot on passing situations.
I wonder what the market will be like for A.J. Dillon, who, I think he missed almost all of last year with the Packers, right? And he was a guy who was drafted to be a guy who can run and catch the ball. Usually those guys are the ones who can pass protect a little bit because they're used to being in on third down.
He's not a third down back, though. He's not a third down back.
He's not a third down back? I thought he was pretty good at catching the ball. No?
He's okay at it, but he's a first and second down guy. Mm-hmm. Check it down to him a little bit if he's in the game on those downs. That's why they drafted Marshawn Lloyd. Marshawn Lloyd, they wanted to.
Right.
Be a third down back, and unfortunately, I think he played one game. Boy, they had such bad luck other than Josh Jacobs. But Dillon didn't play. He had the neck injury. Right. Lloyd had a whole sorts of issues going on. That's when, remember, we saw 31 Emmanuel Wilson in game one against the Eagles. Like, who is this guy?
Right. But he is a 240-pound back, so he's a big dude. Usually those guys are a little bit better at the pass pro because they're bigger. So you would wonder if there's no market for him if you want him, try to bring him in and see if he can be part of your backfield. I don't know. It's just a name that jumped out to me because he's a big guy, and I shouldn't do this, but I sometimes assume the bigger guys are a little bit better.
Not really. Yeah. I mean, no, because that was the problem with Barkley. Despite being 232 pounds, he
got better at it, though.
He did, but he's nowhere close to what we told people when they signed him. There was all sorts of stuff out there. There's this great pass blocking back. What happened was there was this incredible block he had in social media. Mm-hmm. And typically what happens in social media, people just believe anything they see. And one block, all of a sudden he's now a great pass blocker. Well, we talked to people who work with him in the past who love him, but they said he's just not good enough at it. That's something he had to improve on. It was IDing, pre-snap IDing about where everybody was lined up. It's called, you're trying to sort where everybody's lined up, and using angle block, like the way he would line up to pick off blitzers. He's just not good at it. But Jamal Singleton's done a good job with him. His running backs coach, he's got better at it. But there was a reason why Gainwell was in a lot on passing situations, because he's just the best pass blocker.
Right. But it does seem like running back is an area where the Eagles would be smart to sort of try to look for a 1-year veteran deal, because you might want someone with, like a Samaje Perine, someone who's just like someone who's got the experience.
You can do it.
If Saquon gets hurt and you need to split time with Will Shipley and somebody else. And again, a 1 year for a veteran who has the experience to be able to pass block enough that you're satisfied with it,
Yep. And we'll give you, as we start our draft coverage in earnest, because free agency is so quick. Third week of this month, we'll start hitting on it and getting over. We'll talk to people around the league about who are some of the really good pass blocking backs, because you never know. You never know what's going to happen when you're going to need it. And you got to have it. You got to have somebody who's a really good pass protector. You're not looking to be average at it. You want to you just don't settle for anything. You want to be as good as you can.
Of course. All right, so let's move on to tight end. We've already talked about the murky situation with Dallas Goedert. He's got this year left on his deal, but he has no guaranteed money. So that often creates some kind of, discussion between the team and the player. Are you going to extend me and give me some more security? And the team either does or says maybe not. So there's a whole lot to go there. But, behind Dallas is Grant Calcaterra, who is got 1 year left on his deal, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, this year will be the final year. Yeah.
Right. And EJ Jenkins, and that's about it. So the Eagles have been doing this the last few years, trying to get veterans in who have some blocking, like CJ Uzama. They signed him because they knew when they lost Jack Stoll that they would need somebody to be able to block.
Correct. Yeah, and they lost Stoll. Stoll, by the way, is a free agent. I forgot to mention that.
Maybe they'll bring him back.
Yeah, exactly. So Goddard is owed $14.5 million, not guaranteed. He's got an option bonus that's not guaranteed, that's due. And he's got an unguaranteed base salary of $1.255 million. So look, the bottom line is something's got to happen with this contract. I mean, they need to. I mean, could they theoretically say, hey, you know what, we'll bring you back, but we're not going to extend you and we're not going to guarantee anything? It's funny how he was drafted to be Ertz's replacement, and then here we are. Dallas is now 30 years old. Where's time gone, man?
I know. It just means you and I are getting older.
Yeah, didn't say that. Yeah, more gray hair. But yeah, so this is something you have to figure out. Even if he comes back, folks, they got to have his. They got to start. This could be the draft here to start looking at his replacement, and they also got to find somebody who can block. Calcaterra got marginally better at it. He's just not good enough. We all know that. Jenkins is a guy that's a former receiver. He's not good enough at it. He's getting better at it. He's just not good enough. Now, as you mentioned, the Jack Stoll Calcaterra tag team has been good. Like when they were able to play together, they filled in for Goddard 2 years ago. 2 seasons ago. We're not counting this one. We're talking the 22 year when Goddard got hurt. They did a good job together. So we'll see what happens.
All right. Well, yeah. It just feels like another position where the Eagles are be kind of 1 year bargain shopping, unless they make a bigger move where Dallas is not on the roster, and then you have to make a corresponding move there. That would be bigger.
Then it becomes we'll talk on the next show. We'll talk on defense, but obviously edge rusher is a big deal no matter what. But man, if they traded Goddard, they don't have a starter, and quite frankly, because Calcaterra is so limited blocking, that becomes theoretically their biggest need on the football team. If Goddard's not back.
Sure. Good. Listen, this is a good year to need a tight end, though, at least for the draft, because there's some pretty good ones available. All probably through 4 rounds, you'll probably be all right with the talent at tight end in this year's draft. All right, we'll go on to the offensive line and other areas in a second. I want to remind everybody, I'll be there. I'm going back to Stretch Zone today, as a matter of fact, to get myself stretched out. It was good to get back there last week and see Adam. I'm going to see him again. And I'm going to try to get my run in before, because they keep telling me that the post-workout stretch has some other benefits than the pre-workout stretch. Yeah, I believe it. I did it once before. So I'm looking forward to doing that. And, of course, anybody and anyone should go right now. Well, maybe after you're listening to the podcast, go sign up for your free 30-minute stretch. You sign up online at stretchzone.com, or you can call the Stretch Zone close to you, whether you're in Philadelphia area, Jersey area, even in North Jersey. They got them too. In fact, they're in 12 locations in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. And Adam, the weather's starting to get nice. There'll be a few nice mild days this week, so it's important to get those stretches in. Get outside a little.
No doubt. So I get off the plane on Saturday. And the cool thing is, you could book on your app, book on your phone. So I just went to I logged in, took me 30 seconds I visited their Exton location. Saw Samantha, gave me a great stretch. Because man, something about flying. And by the way, when you don't get a lot of rest, even if you're hydrating sometimes, you still feel sore. And I was sore as hell. I was like, thank goodness I had an opening. So I was able to get that Saturday. So they've got 12 locations. Haverford near Suburban Square. See my man Jared. Well, I gotta go back and see him. He's a big soccer fan, by the way. Big soccer guy. They're near the Whole Foods. Well, actually, no, they're near Suburban Square. Now, Devon, that's near the Whole Foods there in that shopping center. There's Orange Theory there. One of these days, I'm going to do Orange Theory, see what that's like. Exton, I mentioned in Whiteland Town Center. South Philly near Graduate Hospital on 25th and Washington Ave. Montgomery County, Elkins Park Plaza. It's funny. I was going to go there, but because it's a little bit of a drive. I thought it would take me an hour from the airport. And figures on Saturdays they're open till 4. Now during the week they're open till 8, just so you know. But so I canceled that and I went to the Exton location. Upper Dublin, Drescher, and the Promenade at Upper Dublin off 611, Feasterville and Lower Southampton Village in New Jersey. Now, you go to the one in Cherry Hill off Evesham, correct?
I do.
Okay.
I go see Adam or Sierra. They do a great job.
Nice. Mount Laurel and Central Square Wegmans. We got to talk to Cosell now that he's finally done for the season. Now he's doing draft stuff. Let's see what kind of time he has. Franklin Lakes on Franklin Ave, Northfield, Tilton Road, and Princeton Nassau Park Pavilion. Go to stretchzone.com. Sign up for your free 30-minute stretch.
All right. By the way, you mentioned Greg Cosell. We are pretty much ready to say that we've got Greg and his show, The Intel with Greg Cosell, that'll be coming back in a couple of weeks. We'll be doing some free agency recap with Greg, and then we'll get right into draft preview with Greg for the main platform. And then we're going to have Ask Greg Cosells for our great Patreon members. So get in on it now. You want to ask Greg your own questions and have him answer them. That's what our Patreon members love. You will love it too. It's patreon.com/InsideTheBirds. It is the off-season subscription you need to have because you're going to be the most informed fan out there if you listen and get to your own chance to talk to Greg and have him answer your questions. Always a great time for our Patreon folks. And also, if you do a solid, just hit a like or subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. Really appreciate it. We're approaching 20,000. We may have already hit it, subs on YouTube. So definitely want to, get that number up and just spread the word about Inside the Bird. So please like and subscribe. I know that some people have been leaving us tips as well on either a super chat or there's a way to leave a tip. We appreciate that. It helps us bring, people like Q&A and Greg and everybody involved with the platform, Andrew DeCecco, who does great work. So we appreciate any tips that are left on the YouTube channel.
By the way, with Patreon, a special hello to Joe B, who showed up. It was pretty cool. I guess he's been a listener for years, and he finally took the plunge, and he showed up his first day as a Patreon member. He showed up to the chat. It was actually really cool, and he asked a couple questions. It was good to see Joe. So I'm glad we were able to see him, and and Greg is looking forward to it. He loves doing these Patreon live streams with folks. He's got to know everybody. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's great. It's really cool getting to know our Patreon members. They really like the live streams that we do every week because we get a chance to really interact with them, get to know them a little bit. And as some people have said, it's kind of like you're just talking Eagles at the bar, right? Just, there's no bar, it's virtual. But you're free to bring a drink, Yeah,
it's true.
I've had some wine on the Ask IDB before, so it's fine.
It's right. That's right. Yeah, man, we should do we should do that. Wait a minute. If you remember, so we did a live stream an hour before the Super Bowl. So people, they were at their parties. It was actually really cool.
Right. That's right. We'll do a little Ask IDB happy hour live stream.
Right. Like maybe
I'm going to write that down right now. Happy hour live stream. We'll get.
You know what? Maybe I'll add one. Okay. Mm-hmm. So happy hour is what, like 4 to 6 Eastern to 7, 4 to 6.
Sort of depends. Yes, yeah. Although we got people all over the place, so it might be
it's funny
in the morning or PM.
I know that's true. That's true. It could be depending where you're living. No, at the Weber Grill in Indy, I love that place. I was at their happy hour on Friday. It was great. Yeah,
awesome. Good. We need to get them on like an advertising, a sponsorship for the combine when you go, because you probably say Weber Grill 300 times,
I love that. I gotta say though, Steak and Shake man, I was disappointed.
Really?
I got the mint Oreo cookie. It just tasted different. They don't use the glass.
Oh yeah, they use the plastic cup, big plastic
exactly cup. Right. It's just not the same. I don't know. It wasn't as good as usual. It was just okay. I was disappointed. Oh well. What's that?
You're just gonna have to go back and
I'll go back next. I'll give him one more try. Anyway.
All right, let's continue our look at what the Eagles will need on offense. We'll go to the offensive line. Now, obviously, the right guard situation has to resolve itself here, Adam. If Mekhi Becton stays, he's your right guard, and you have good depth with Tyler Steen there. If Mekhi Becton doesn't stay, Tyler Steen, you would assume if he doesn't take the reins immediately, he's in competition for the right guard, but they will have to address their depth. I think they need to address their depth on the interior offensive line in general, because even last year, I think they would like to have a center that they feel good about, a backup center going in. Matt Hennessy didn't work out. Nick Gates didn't work out because they didn't feel comfortable playing him. So they had to slide Landon Dickerson there. I would think the Eagles would like to have a backup guard / center who they're comfortable with going in to play center and don't have to do too much movement.
Now that, and remember they cut Dylan McMahon, who the
Yep.
was he claimed from the Rams? Claim him?
Yes.
I know it was
He was claimed by the Rams, right? Because he
yes.
was on the practice squad, and the Rams signed him off the practice squad.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Nobody claimed him. No, that's what happened, which is telling. And the Rams signed him off the practice, Eagles practice squad. That's right. That's right. And he did remain there throughout the season. But so look, Tyler Sheen would obviously be the leading candidate to be the right guard. But the very least is, you're right. They really need depth on the offensive line. It's a little bit of a problem. Yeah. Darren Kennard really is more of a right tackle than a guard. So that's certainly an issue.
Yeah. And they're pretty good usually, Adam. Listen, I don't blame. Listen, sometimes you're hoping something works. It doesn't work. I thought they had a good approach last year. They got Kennard, right? They got Hennessy. There was another. They drafted two guys. Oh, Keegan. They drafted Trevor Keegan. They drafted Dylan McMahon. So this is what the Eagles do. They're gonna try to stockpile as many backup linemen as they can, along with starting linemen. But they just weren't. You could tell they just weren't as confident in their backup crew. They never played Kennard. Even Fred Johnson played both left and right tackle last year. They barely ever played. I don't think they played Gates unless it was like the last season finale. They did play Keegan a little bit, I think, right? Earlier in the year, if someone got hurt and he had to go in.
I don't remember, but he might have. But the comical thing was them playing Kennard every snap in the preseason. Like that. Yeah. Have you ever seen that before for a backup? It was only 2 games, but that was crazy. Yeah, it's crazy.
Right. So that's an area I would think that they're going to try to work on, as they usually do.
And there are plenty of them. I could tell you, looking at my file, there are a lot of them. We'll go over the list later this week, but that's usually not a problem. But I'm telling you, folks, it is the free agency of a ton. There are probably 200 mid-level free agents when you look at it. It's just the way it is now. There are plenty of guys who were drafted in like the 2nd round or 3rd round who clubs had high hopes for that just never worked out. So we'll see what happens. And then it swing off. Yeah, they need a swing tackle. Fred Johnson turned out to be a really good player for them. It was a good find for them. Great, Fred. I love Fred's interview. You could see his respect for Jeff Stoutland and how he seemed kind of unhappy when he came here, just about where his career is headed. And great job. He revived his career. He's another guy I enjoyed really hearing and talking. His turnaround in his career. So good for Fred. And hopefully he gets paid somewhere, man. You never know. Yeah,
it would be good for not. If not, it would be great to have him back. I'm sure the Eagles would have him back if they could.
Sure.
All right. So last position would be wide receiver. It's funny. Last year, Devontae Parker, remember that was one of their signings, and he retired.
Out of the blue.
And then they signed Paris Campbell too. And it was sort of like, man, what are they doing here? Some old aging guys, but they were just trying to stockpile some depth at the position. Even though they drafted Ainias Williams and
Ainias Smith.
Ainias Smith, right? Yep. And Johnny Wilson.
Yep.
And they'll be entering year 2. I do think this, and they'll have, of course, another year of Jahan Dotson. Wouldn't be surprised if they went bargain shopping 1-year veteran here just to have a little more depth.
And competition, to be honest with you, because Johnny Wilson's so limited. Yeah, Wilson's just limited. You didn't draft him just to block. Because he's got such great size. You hope that in his 2nd year that Aaron Moorhead, the receivers coach, could get him developed better. We'll see. Ainias Smith was hurt for most of the season, who is a guy that a lot of personnel people we spoke with really liked. In fact, I talked to one guy at the combine who actually had him in his area, so he gave me some really good stuff. He goes, look, he's really good running after the catch. He's super tough. He's not going to run a fast 40 time, but he runs well with the ball in his hands. He's a guy that should play more inside than outside. In fact, he probably won't play the slot, but you could do the gadget stuff with him. He's a talented kid, and plus he could return punts. So he's got some value here, and I know the Eagles are very high on him. He just unfortunately was dealing with a couple of different injuries. So, yeah, they could stand to have one more kind of veteran-ish guy. And remember that this is the final year of Jahan Dotson's deal, and he came on late. So we'll see what happens, but it wouldn't hurt them. Britton Covey is a restricted free agent. It's almost certain that he won't be tenured because the money's too rich. Doesn't mean they can't bring him back. Typically, when you think a guy, because he obviously missed just about all the season, you could bring him back at a lower number. That's something that a lot of teams do. So we'll see what happens with Britton. Hopefully he's doing okay.
Yeah. All right. Great stuff. That is really the offense. And we've gone through the needs, expected needs. as free agency is a week away. And then on the next episode, we will get into defense and do the same thing. That's going to do it for this edition of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles intel. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the Birds.